Fantastic. So I have the pleasure of reconnecting with the man who has completed this Herculean effort of rowing solo, unassisted, self-supported from Monterey, California to Honolulu. Mr. Tez Steinburg. Tez, great to see you again.
Thank you, Don. Glad to be here. Always good to talk with you.
You're back on terra firma, and God, kudos and congrats. And it's I think from the outside it can be hard to really connect with the enormity of what you've done, and it would be great just to hear in your own words, what are some of the most meaningful elements of the journey that just are now starting to surface? You've been back for how long?
Just over 2 months, like 2 months and a week at this point. I've been on land and in Colorado for about 6 weeks.
Yeah, great. So what are some of the things that really are just, the things that come back again and again as, the great highlights of having completed something that at times it sure looked like from the outside looking in, it was very questionable whether you'd even finish.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, at the start, I didn't know if I would ever make it. I felt like if I did arrive at the finish, that I would have PTSD for the rest of my life. The first month was just so brutal and difficult. But by the end, I loved it. I was having the absolute time of my life. And when it finished, it didn't feel like I had some accomplishment under my belt. It was more that I had the privilege of being witness to the beauty of the ocean for so long, and I'd gone from being scared of it at the start, as I was teaching me some very fierce lessons quickly, to being something I love and respect and admire at the end. And so it's funny, now in hindsight, I look back and it still doesn't feel like some grand accomplishment. I just think back to the moments, like spending the whole day just admiring how blue everything is, the sky and the water and the white clouds. It sounds simple, but it's stunningly gorgeous. And being able to see from horizon to horizon in all directions is just it feels like a different world. And that's what stays with me. And then coming back, you realize, well, it is our world. And actually we depend on that ocean. It provides the majority of our oxygen globally comes from the oceans, provides a huge component of our diets of fish and nutrition. And our economy depends on the well-being of that ecosystem, those ecosystems. So, coming back, it's not like, feels like, oh, I've had this huge accomplishment. It's more just a growing awareness that this is something really valuable to all of us. And I just feel privileged to have been a witness to it.
Amazing, amazing. And I know that, setting out, one of your, missions was to raise awareness about the fragility of that ecosystem. And it sounds like you've developed an even deeper both appreciation for and perhaps call to arms in many ways about protecting it. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's highly impactful to be out there in a place where I'm seeing sharks and whales and dolphins and fish all day long. But the thing I'm seeing the most of is plastic all day long. And I took a lot of photos, things I want to print for art. And I'm looking back at the photos now on my computer and editing them and realizing, oh, that would be a nice print. And then I look closer and I'm like, oh, there's plastic in the photo again and again and again. And so that's obviously pretty impactful. The challenge is just up to me personally. What am I going to do about it? Right. So it's an important personal choice of what we can each do to reduce our plastic use. And also I just see myself making that more a focus of my career in the coming years too, to find solutions that are not just consume less, do less, but are pro business, pro environment.
Interesting. Well, I want to explore that more, but before doing so, I'd love to hear more about, for you personally, those lessons you mentioned at the outset that the ocean taught you in the earliest days, from, it sounds like, fear that you shared about it, and then what it was like to come face to face with those fears and how that showed up, directly.
Yeah, well, the first day in the ocean was a dream. It was amazing. The wind was low, the waves were low. I made great progress, and I was surrounded by humpback whales the whole day. They came up to my boat within feet away and was just incredible. Day 2, the wind started picking up, and day 3, it got huge, and I just couldn't fight it. And so from day 3 to day 7, I spent inside my cabin, basically bouncing around. I had secured the boat with a para anchor. It's like an underwater parachute that keeps me from capsizing, but it's pretty exhausting tumbling around in what feels like a washing machine down a never-ending staircase. And in those days, day 3 to 7, I became convinced that the whole effort was a waste, that I was an embarrassment to myself and my sponsors. I should have never attempted this. I was incredibly unprepared, and I should just turn back. And even that, part of that was conscious and part of that was unconscious. I started looking for excuses, the reasons I could turn back and kind of hold face a little bit, save face. And once I admitted to myself that I wanted to quit, and once I talked to my duty officer, the woman who built my boat, Sonia Baumstein, I was in touch with via satellite phone. She's like, look, it makes sense that you want to quit, and that's totally your choice, and no one's going to judge you for it. But just try to keep an open mind. And so, day 7 begins, and I said, let me just keep an open mind. Is it possible for me to make today a good day? I'm not going to get to Hawaii tonight, and I can always choose to quit, but I'm not going to quit today. And what can I do to make today a good day? And so I started, it really comes down to mental gymnastics of what can I do to make the most of this really difficult experience. And this, Don, as an endurance athlete, you don't get to the finish line in one step or one effort. You have to break that goal down into manageable chunks that you can actually put your arms around. And so there were days where I was not making any westward progress. I'm going south, but I'm not getting much closer to Hawaii west. And I just have to accept that I'm not going to get there tonight. Figure out what I can do to make today a good day, make some progress, and just enjoy myself, because really all I have is this moment after all. And those are a few of the lessons that helped me get through the difficult parts at the start.
Yeah, fascinating. And that shift that seems so slight of perspective, right? From, oh my God, this whole endeavor to today, day 7. It sounds like, did that serve you well in the days thereafter in terms of breaking it down? And
it works. The challenge is, day 15, my rowing seat broke. And then I had to keep repairing it with more and more precarious solutions, pieces of wood that I would cut from scrap wood on the boat for emergency repairs I thought I would never have to make. Remaking bearings by melting down plastic on the boat to fill into the wheel, my rollerblade wheels, all these different things. And it's one thing to say, okay, I won't get there tonight. It's another thing to say, I'm rowing farther away from land with solutions that I know aren't going to last very long, and just trusting myself that I'll figure out what the next solution is. So you kind of need also a leap of faith at a certain point. Like the hardest parts of this were not always, it wasn't, there were some hard days fighting hard conditions and currents going against me, and times I couldn't get off the oars because I'd go backwards. But the hardest parts were the parts where I was just doubting myself, doubting that I would come up with another solution for the wheels, doubting that I would figure out how to fix the next thing that broke. And that's much more exhausting. And at a certain point, I just had to make a decision of like, I was coming up with all these solutions. Okay, if this breaks, this is what I'll do next. If that breaks, that's what I'll do next, which is good to an extent, but it's also exhausting. And I had to make a call at a certain point, like, no more. I'll figure it out when I need to figure it out, but I'm not going to keep thinking of worst case scenarios and what I'm going to do in those scenarios, because that's just ruining my mood and making this an awful experience. So, I mean, I think that's something that we can all relate to, because it's easy to worry about what might go wrong. And there's some value in planning ahead of what to do if things go wrong, but don't spend your whole life doing that.
And do you recall when that shift happened for you roughly? Was it in that first 3 or 4 weeks, or was it right after that?
It was definitely in the first 4 weeks. Around week 5, things started to get a little bit easier. It's funny, I was out there for 10 weeks in one day, and for the most part, I can recall the theme of each week, you know. But yeah, that realization started coming around week 4 and 5, where the wheel broke in week 2, or the day 15, so the start of week 3, and then I was making some consistent repairs, and at a certain point, I was just like, I can't keep thinking about this, and yeah, that coincided also with starting to get more supportive wind and weather and current conditions, and so that that decision also coincided with the journey itself getting a little less difficult.
Amazing.
And yeah, it all worked out.
Well, it sounds like this leap of faith you refer to, Tez, those first weeks, following your journey, when you're not making headway, you're going south, the risk that the currents and wind would make it such that you'd never sort of punch through to be able to get out, out.
It's a real risk. I mean, that's why until me, there's only one other person who completed this on his first attempt. He holds the world record. He'd previously solo rode the Atlantic. Everybody else who has ever rode this route has rode a previous ocean. And even so, the overall success rate is, I think, under 40 or maybe under 30%. It's extremely difficult, especially that first month. And I knew that in my head, but I never stopped on to think about what that meant. And so I got out there and I was like, fuck, this is really hard. And I was like, I knew it would be hard, but I didn't know it'd be this hard. I'm like, well, duh. And I was just really beating myself up, because how naive of me. Like, on the one hand, to have on my website that this is really hard and kind of brag about it and use that story to raise sponsorship and support and inspire people. And then I get out there and somehow I'm surprised by how difficult it is. But that's also part of being an endurance athlete or an entrepreneur. Like, you don't always think about what the challenge is. You just decide to do it and trust that you'll figure it out along the way.
Yeah, fascinating. And that trust along the way, and that leap of faith, is that what it was that just kept you at the oars when others, knew, everybody else, right, that's done it except one, hasn't been able to make it on that first journey on their own? So was it that trust and faith that you feel like really allowed you to, as you say, row further away from shore, knowing what a predicament you were in?
I mean, I don't know what was going on in their world or their boat, so I can't exactly compare what worked or didn't work for them. But I do think it's really important to break it down and figure out, okay, how can I still have fun? Like, that was one of the things that got me into this, was just the opportunity to be outside and enjoy being in nature. And hell, I wanted a challenge, right? So conditions are difficult. Well, let's see what I can do with it. Like, you're going on a massive hike, and if it's flat and easy the whole time, you'd be kind of bored, right? So at what point do you say, okay, this is too much? And can you then say, okay, it's too much? Well, let's see how I can handle too much. That was my approach. I can't really compare it to others, but I think focusing on the beauty in nature definitely helped me get through it.
Interesting. I wanted to ask you about that, because it did seem like at a point that it was less around what wasn't working, right, in terms of just the sense I got from what you were sharing, and instead just, wow, being out in the elements and really connecting with the ocean and the environment that you were in.
Totally. And that was a conscious call as well, because I was blogging, sending back photos and videos the whole time. And part of that story is telling people what's going on, like what am I struggling with. And then also at a certain point, people don't want to follow a story, and I don't want to tell a story that's 2 months of seat repairs, even if that's what I'm doing the whole time. So I just made a decision of like, yes, I'm still fixing stuff. What else is happening that's much more interesting and actually makes, what do you really want to hear about? What do I want to remember as well? Because what I document and reflect is what I'll remember 10 years from now. So yeah, I made a conscious choice on that. And it also, things started getting a little bit easier, and the sun came out and I could see colors. And, for the first month, mostly it was more or less overcast. So it was gray water, gray skies. And when the sun came out and I changed my mindset, then it, became a different story.
Yeah, yeah. Even so much as, at least from my perspective, enjoying the adventure for its own sake, and dare I say, even the play of it. It seemed like you just took on you had Wilson, and it just came across as you were really just enjoying it more and more and more as time went on.
Completely. Yeah, dude. By the end, I was having the time of my life. I mean, I got to Hawaii and it was bittersweet. I was like stoked to have made it, excited to be on land, really excited to stretch my legs. My legs hurt a lot. My hands hurt a lot. Tendonitis, they're still recovering big time. Like I couldn't do any rowing right now. I could, it just wouldn't be very fun. So I was excited for things at the end. Sorry, bit of wind here.
That's all right.
Reminds me of the ocean. I was excited for things at the end, but I was sad to say goodbye to the ocean. I was really, really just having the time of my life and seeing more and more wildlife, getting closer to Hawaii, different behavior of animals, and starting to piece together the scene. I realized first I see flying fish and I think, oh, wow, I've seen flying fish. And then I start realizing, okay, that's just one piece of a puzzle. The fish are flying because they're being chased beneath by predators. And then I realize the birds are waiting for the flying fish to come up and they're going to swoop at them. And so I start looking for other cues to piece together what's happening. And then I also see that, like, start responding to that. So when I was fishing, I realized, okay, I want to pay attention to when the birds are swooping or I see a flying fish. I can, retrieve I'm trolling my lure. I can retrieve it and throw it in the area where I just saw some flying fish, because I know there's predator fish beneath that. So when I caught my mahi-mahi, for example, first I saw 2 flying fish out of the water. Then I saw a bird swoop out of it. Then I saw a jack jump out of the water because they're kind of leaping at the surface as they chase these flying fish. And then I hooked into a Dorado. And those are 4 different species that you might notice just one at a time. And even though I see 4 now, I realize there's actually a lot more pieces of that interaction going on. And the farther I got, the more I actually understood what was happening around me and could make sense of it, and felt like I was, part of that system rather than just a visitor there, even though, of course, just a visitor. But it was amazing by the end. Yeah, I just loved it.
That's just the way you describe it. It's so clear how immersive, and that's an understatement, the experience was, because you became part of it.
Speaking of immersive, one thing I did is I shot 10 hours of 360 video. So I'm editing that right now to put into the headsets so that you can be in the boat with me, right? It's one thing to watch a video on a screen, and I shot plenty of 4K. We'll release a couple films next year. But the idea of the 360 footage is you get to put it on and there you are. You're looking all around, you're seeing it. And I've just been playing around with that the past few days, and it's really cool. So I'll be putting some of the 360 videos on YouTube, and then also when we're able to gather in person again, be doing events with these headsets to give people a firsthand experience of what it's like on the ocean, coupling really difficult scenes with the mindfulness and techniques that I use to actually get through them, helping people practice that themselves.
Yeah.
So excited for that next year.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I want to ask you a little bit more about that in terms of what you're hopeful that video, what it instills in people that you're hopeful they take away from, both in terms of the ocean their own capacity to take on significant challenges, which collectively we have, obviously, right? But then individually, we have in our own way to make changes in our lives. What are some of the key things, Tez, that you'd love people to take away on those topics?
Just to believe in themselves, that they can do something. I mean, I was inspired by a film back in 2016, a film about a woman who had rowed and paddled around the world. And that made me think, holy crap, could I row an ocean? A few weeks later, I decided I would. It took me nearly 4 years to get everything ready, but I did it, right? I got the whole campaign together and managed to get out there and do it, and inspired a lot of people. And along the way, raised over $76,000 for scholarships, which was also part of the mission. And so the film, there's going to be a couple films, but I want them both to really help people realize that they can do it, right? That life is short. It's a beautiful world. You can do what you set your mind to. And also to give some firsthand evidence of what's happening in the ocean, because we really need to do something about it, and it comes down to our personal choices.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Well, it's I think at a time in modern life in which we're all faced with such hardship in a variety of ways that, while very real, particularly for those directly impacted by COVID, in the grand scheme of things, you've been through this hardship, and sharing your journey, I think, is something that we need now more than ever. And also, quite honestly, in the context of the administration that's been at the helm of this country the last 4 years, and a seeming disregard for the impact of human behavior on our ecosystem globally. I feel like your story is more timely than it could ever be right now.
Yeah, hopefully next year it can really help us reconnect with where we come from, where we get our value. There's no economy without the environment. I hate the term environmentalist. It's completely absurd term, because it's just a question of sustainability of the environment, of our economy, and our culture. They all depend on natural resources. And so, yeah, if my story can be a part of us reconnecting to that and taking a longer view, I think that would be an awesome legacy.
Great, Tez. Well, as we wrap up here, it sounds like you're not done with the ocean. That's for sure, in terms of rowing it. And so what's out there for you that you're contemplating and excited by the prospect of?
Well, I can't make any announcements just yet. What I can say is I left the boat in Hawaii. I plan to get back in it, and I'll be going public with plans mid-2021 with my partners. So everyone can stay tuned. Journey's not over.
I love it. I love it. And Tez, you've raised an enormous amount of money to support young adults have an experience that you had, right? If you could just touch on that and invite listeners to continue to contribute to such a worthwhile cause that, again, I think now more than ever, we need to band together, regardless of where we're from or what flag we salute.
Thanks, Don. Yeah, when I was 17, I got a scholarship to a school called UWC, United World College. And this was a life-changing experience. I moved to Italy with students from 200 students from 85 countries. All of us were on scholarships, and UWC is actually a high school program, even though it's called a college. And really, we learn at these schools how much more we have in common than different. And being 17 years old, making friends from people from all corners of the world, obviously changes your outlook. It's incredibly empowering. It can be scary to go to this school, not knowing what people will think of you, leaving your family behind. but we're all in that boat together, and then we stay lifelong friends. And the mission of these schools is to create a peaceful and sustainable future. So ever since I was 17, I wanted to give this experience to other students. And in May, as Black Lives Matter protests really started gripping the nation, I was preparing to head out to sea and felt like I wanted to be a part of that, but couldn't be on the streets. So I decided, let's use the funds we raise for United World Colleges to send students of color from the US to the United World College of the USA, which is in New Mexico. And so far we've raised $76,000, which will be almost enough to send 3 students to this school. And the more the merrier, right? So absolutely welcome additional support. Hit the stretch goal of $100,000. Every donation really, really helps. And this will provide full scholarships for students to attend this school. So diversifying what's already a diverse movement globally to represent more of our population in the United States and bring these deserving young students to these schools.
Fantastic, fantastic. And the best place for people to do so?
UnitedWorldChallenge.org. That's my website. That's the campaign. And at UnitedWorldChallenge.org, just click donate, and 100% of your gift will go towards the scholarship fund.
Fantastic, Tez. Well, I'd also love to just hear a few words about just physiologically and psychologically what the experience was like. And obviously, you know, at Pure Power, we're firm believers in the power of Mother Nature, right, to help us balance and overcome things like, just day to day, but also for you, rowing across an ocean under extreme conditions. What was that like?
It was a steep learning curve in terms of what my body could take. By the second half of the row, I realized what I needed to be doing. My hands were really breaking down. My skin was breaking down. My muscles were sore. And my energy was really difficult to just stay energized after, 9 to 15 hours of rowing every day. What I did by the second half was I was just doing Herculean doses of Pure Power. I would do something between like 50 and 60 milligrams of the tincture in the morning, and then another 50 or 60 in the afternoon. I was doing a lot of the reboot, and that was critical. I'm telling you, like in terms of feeling energized, clear, reducing the inflammation in my body, cutting back on the pain, being able to sleep well. I started the row at more normal doses, and as I went further, I just realized, no, this isn't quite cutting it. Now, normal doses when I'm on land and training is fine. And even this week, I'm taking off to reset my system. Now that I've been back a couple of months and I'm feeling a little bit better in my recovery, I'm taking this week off, and then I'll go back and again keep up normal doses. But when your body is under such enormous stress, I know in my case, it was a freaking lifesaver. The absolute lifesaver. So that just was able to really give me clean energy and a clear mind when my body was under enormous stress.
I love it. I love it. Well, I'm honored. We all are at Pure Power. Sean and I, the team, to support you, Tez, and the mission. And kudos and congratulations, and continue, because it's just like shockwaves, and we're so honored to be a part of that.
Thank you, Don. Yeah, I really appreciate your support and was thinking of you a lot out there, and look forward to continuing to work together.
Love
Thank
it.
you.
It's great. It's great catching up, and again, we'll be anxiously awaiting that video footage and looking forward to some storytelling.
Awesome. Thanks, Don.
All right, Tez. Talk soon.